Hey guys, and welcome back to my vlogging channel. It has been so long since I've actually sat down and filmed a vlog video. It's been like a month and a half since I did Vita, which I think was the last time I vlogged. Go me. I'm coming to you today to film my super delayed May/April bookish wrap-up video because I didn't do a whole lot of reading in April, but in May I did all sorts of reading. As you can see, kind of out the window, it's super gloomy and super gross outside, so I need to grab my coffee. Now that I've actually found the list of all the books I read in April, and by all the books I read, two books that I read were The Girl Who Chased the Moon by, oh my gosh, I feel like it's Sarah Addison Allen, I think is The Girl Who Chased the Moon. It's the same author who wrote The Sugar Queen and another book that I read that I liked a decent amount. So I picked up a third book by her because I know that they're kind of light and easy reads, so I figured I would read one of those, and it was pretty good. I think I liked it. I liked it maybe not quite as much as Sugar Queen, but definitely more than I liked the other one. So The Girl Who Chased the Moon I thought was pretty good. The other book that I read was the 2015 Book of American Poetry. So that is like a big collection of all sorts of poetry. I have a bug bite on my foot and it is itching something crazy. While I itch my foot, oh, it's so itchy. So what that book is a collection of like great poems written in 2015. They could have been published somewhere else. They're all edited each year by a different person. This one was edited by Sherman Alexie, which, as most of us know, as the author of the YA book, The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian. So he edited this group of poetry. I didn't know he was like in poetry, in the poetry sphere at all, so go me. I didn't give it a rating on Goodreads because I figured I don't read enough poetry to rate poetry. So I don't really know. I don't know. I thought I would read it because it's supposed to be like the best poetry of 2015, and I figured I would find some that I liked. And I did. I found a couple that I liked. But overall, I was kind of like, alright. So let's move on to May, which was a much better reading month for me. In May, I read a total of 8. I read a total of 8 books, guys. So let's go over them, shall we? As you guys have seen in one of my Vita videos, I got a Kindle. And I got really obsessed with reading ebooks on my Kindle. So a lot of the time I would just go through the Omni app and try and pick out some books that were currently available. So there are 2 books on here that I probably wouldn't have read otherwise, but they were available right then and there and I wanted to read them. So the first book that I read was The Dark Witch by Nora Roberts. I do actually read quite a bit of Nora Roberts. This one was just, it was kind of meh. I didn't really like it that much, actually. It was set in Ireland and it involved witches, which both of those things sound like things that I would like, but it felt very much like my favorite book by her, which is Dance Upon the Air, which is set on the East Coast about witches. It felt very much like that, except the characters were not nearly as likable, and the romance was not nearly as genuine. So I got I was pretty meh about that one. I don't like it when she does the thing where she like goes back in time and talks about people like back in the day, back in the medieval day, and how they relate to the people in the present day. I'm not a big fan of when she does that. I don't think she does it exceptionally well. I like her contemporary, romancy, sweet books. So that is what I think she does well. This one I just think was not exceptionally well done. So that was The Dark Witch by Nora Roberts. It is a trilogy. I rented the second book from the library as well and then never read it because I was like, well. The other book that I would not have typically picked up but was available for free and had a really cute cover, and I'm like a sucker for these kind of books because they have really cute covers usually. And that was Red Velvet Murder. So it's Red Velvet Cupcake Murder, actually, because I realized that Red Velvet Murder would have been the better title for that book. It's a cozy mystery bakery book. So cozy mystery, if you don't know, is an actual genre, and there are certain traits that all cozy mysteries follow. So a cozy mystery usually involves death that occurs off scene, so you don't see it. There is not a lot of gore. Usually the deaths are like poisonings and that sort of stuff, so there's no like blood or anything. And you're very removed from the murder. If there's any romance at all in it, it is like super duper G-rated romance, which I'm gonna be honest, was totally unbelievable in this book. Like, these people are like 30-something years old, and they keep talking about how this guy just comes over and brings his cat over, and they sit there and they play with the cat, and then he leaves, like, ooh, scandalously, like at 11 o'clock at night. And I was like, oh my god, guys, really? We're 30 years old, and this is the person who has asked you to marry him? Just, I don't know. So I decided the cozy mysteries are like, they're like not my thing. I've been suckered in by their covers several times. And so they've got really adorable covers usually, and they're just super unbelievable. So long story short, that was like the 16th book in the series about this one girl and her bakery. They put little like recipes throughout. I love books that have food in them. So I was thinking, oh, like one of these cozy mystery bakery type, that's like, psh, I got that. Even if it's just like fluff, full of nothing book. The recipes were awful. Like the recipe, like they're legitimate recipes, but they are not for people who cook. Like you read those and you're like, that's not gonna taste like anything. So that was really frustrating because I thought at least like the recipes would be like, oh, this is from a bakery. Let me tell you, if you run a bakery off of the recipes, like what they gave in the book, go do something else with your time because you don't own a bakery and reuse those recipes. Moving on to books that I actually enjoyed in the month. The next book I read was The Martian. I actually read The Martian. Again, I got it for my Kindle. I rented it from the library. I have a physical copy. Well, actually, my boyfriend has a physical copy, but, you know, renting it from your library is free as well, so you might as well. So I rented that, and I liked it. I didn't like it nearly as much as I thought I would. I thought I was gonna be, like, on the bandwagon. I loved it. Super sciencey. That's all my jam, guys. Found it a little bit dry. Now, I thought the science was really solid. Obviously, this guy knows what he's talking about. I think what it was it wasn't that there wasn't drama, because I don't typically like books. I like books that just explore an experience. So I don't need a lot of drama. I don't need a lot of plot. There was something about it that just, it didn't completely click with me. I really liked all of the like political talk that they did back on Earth, actually. I didn't think Mark actually had a whole lot of character. It was a lot of, I did this, then I did this, then I did this, and then I did this. And I think it needed a little bit more like actual character of him, like what he was thinking about, rather than a list of science things. I don't know. The science is what people loved about that book, and being a scientist, it was really cool. I will give the book credit for that. The science was really solid, as well as it being incredibly believable. Like, you suspend disbelief immediately, because everything he's talking about, you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, nope, that would be a problem. So it was very like, you suspended disbelief kind of immediately, because you're just like, yep, that sounds totally believable. It's not like a sci-fi flick. Like, if you look at like the Next Generation level starships, we have to think that that's not how we're going to be getting to Mars, at least at first. We're going to be getting to Mars very much the same way as we've gotten to the moon. So I liked that part a lot, that I thought it was very, very believable even from the get-go. Long story short, I liked it. I think I gave that one 4 stars. The next book I read was a book that I hauled a little bit ago. It was The Exhibit. It's a very short little poetry collection. Again, don't read poetry often, but I thought that this one sounded really cool because it is about all of these different exhibits in a museum. I don't understand poetry, I feel like. I'm just not the person that reads poetry and gets it. I actually looked up this book to see if other people had blog posts or videos kind of telling me what the heck happened, because I just felt like I was reading just pages, and this is definitely a failing on my part. This has nothing to do with the book. I'm sure the book is great in the right person's hands, but for me, I probably unrealistically expecting it to do something that it was not going to do. So there's a certain type of poetry. I will put the word up here because it's a word that I've never seen before. It is a type of poetry that examines usually an art piece or like an installation in a museum and talks about that piece as if it were alive and like what it's doing and moving and that sort of thing. So it's a very specific type of poetry. Again, I didn't give this a rating because I don't feel like I read enough poetry to give it a rating. Next, I read White is for Witching by Helen Oyeyemi. This was really good. I really liked it. I didn't expect it to be what it was. It's very weird. It's very weird, and it's definitely not for everybody. I read portions of it to Drew, and he was like, I would have stopped reading that immediately because that sounds like it's hard as heck to get through. And it was hard to get through. It was a short book. I think it was only like 200 pages. But it was weird. It was really, really weird. It's about a girl who has pica and her twin brother, and a house that they live in. And the house has a narrative perspective. So does the girl who has pica and her brother. They're switching between these three narrators. It is written very strangely. It's written very metaphorically, and the house is really creepy. And at the end of the book, it reveals some stuff that you're like, oh, well, something's gone amiss. So I won't spoil anything, but let me just say, if you finish reading the book, go back to the beginning and reread the first, like, introduction. Read the introduction part. It's taken as, like, a police interview between three people. And once you finish the book, go back and read the front part, because everything that they say will make a heck of a lot more sense after you finish the rest of the book if you go back and you reread it. And that is what made it like such an enjoyable read for me, is because I was like confused 90% of the time, and then I finished it and I went back and read it and went, oh no, I did understand what was going on. It's just presented in a way that you won't know really what's happening until you finish the book. So the next book that I read was Mistborn. I've never read a Brandon Sanderson book before. I got really into wanting to read some fantasy, so as you'll see in the haul portion, I picked up quite a few little books this month, one of them being Mistborn. I really, really liked it. It's like, yeah, it's almost 700 pages in this edition. This is a little mass market paperback edition. It's almost 700 pages. I read it all. I really enjoyed it. The characters are all very cool. I liked them. I did not figure out what was happening until like the last little bit of the book, which is always exciting. But I got into a big fantasy kick after I read White is for Witching, and ended up reading quite a few fantasy books in the next couple weeks. So I read Mistborn, really enjoyed it, gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read, I may actually do a full review on, because it's just kind of one of those books that kind of needs its own full review. And that is The Natural History of Dragons, a memoir by Lady Trent. If you like dragons and you want to know everything there could be to know about dragons, you might like this. For me, I loved it because it is written by an anthropologist. So this is Marie Brennan, the actual author, is an anthropologist and an archaeologist. And it is so obvious that when she's writing this, that is her background. Also, I love the cover of these books in this series. It's like an old time diagram. What do you call those? I don't know. Anatomical sketch. So I really like that. But if you like anthropology and you like that sort of thing, then you'll like this. But I won't say too much about it because maybe I will do a full review on it. But it follows Lady Trent, a dragon naturalist. Now, that's why I say it is not a book about dragons. It is a book about her life studying dragons. Dragons are like everything in this book. They are everywhere. They are discussed. But if you want to know facts about dragons in this universe, this is like the perfect book, because it talks about what they are, how they move, you know, their habitats, their behavior. It is like a science book on dragons. And that to me was super, super interesting. I am going to be picking up the next couple in the series. I think there's 4 out right now. First of all, they're gorgeous and I want the entire set. If you're an anthropology, archaeology nerd like I am, this is like a super great book. But you have to know that going in. It is not like an action adventure, kill the dragon, save the world sort of book. It's just not. It is about her life studying dragons, as if you were to read a book about somebody's obsession with lions and going and studying lions. The last book I read in the month of May was Jane Eyre. I actually did it. I read the entirety of Jane Eyre in May. I read it in basically a day, but it was like the hardest read I have ever had. I don't know why. There must have been something about the way that the pages are formatted. It took me forever to get through 300 pages. So I had like an entire day. I sat on the couch and I read Jane Eyre, but it took me like 6 hours to get through 300 pages. I did enjoy it. I obviously knew what was going to happen because I've lived in this earth for 25 years, so I knew what the plot was. I knew what was going to happen. I did like now that I can say, oh yeah, I've read Jane Eyre, I know what you're alluding to, basically. Those were all the books that I read, but I did actually purchase some books, so you can see some more over there, that now I'm going to haul! Yay! So, like you probably guessed, I bought these 2 in the month of May, and I've already read them. So I feel very proud of myself for having bought and already read those. So I immediately, when I finished Mistborn, I went out and bought The Well of Ascension, which is the second book in the Mistborn trilogy. I've only gotten like a teeny tiny portion through this one. So like I said, I was in a fantasy mood, so I picked up quite a few fantasy books over the last couple weeks. So one of the other books that I was really wanting to get to was The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. Again, this is supposed to be like an epic fantasy series that I have been meaning to get to for a couple of years and just never have. So now I have the first book, and I hope to get to it actually this month. I'll probably end up reading it this month. So there's that. And then I picked up 2 other little books that I got off of a recommendation from Mercedes over at Mercy Musings Readings, something like that. It's a, like, tongue twister. But I picked them up because she talked about them and they made me want them, so I bought them because I thought they were pretty. So that is The Crane's Dance by Meg Howry. This is a book about 2 sisters who are ballerinas and think they're performing Swan Lake, and one of them goes home because she has a mental break. So this actually is a little book, but it sounds really interesting. It's not the typical book that I pick up. It's very contemporary, but it sounded really interesting, so I thought I'd give it a try. And then the next one is The Knife Drawer by Pedrika Tarrant, I don't know. This is like super creepy. It's really soft. The book is very soft. It's like got like a, I don't know. You would know if you felt it. This is written from like a bunch of different perspectives of like the knives and the mice and the mom and the house. This is a very gothic, kind of creepy book. I haven't gotten to it yet because I feel like I need like a day to read it. I can't read it at night. So that, I think, is going to end the video here. This is going to be a long video because I have to talk about so many books. If there is a book that you would like me to review that I have read, leave me a comment down below and tell me what book you want me to review, because I've got a few that I could review. I'll talk to you guys very soon, and hopefully I'll have some more vlogging stuff. There's a kitty. In the future. Right, Zazu? And Zazu says goodbye. Goodbye, internet. Alright, so I'll talk to you guys very soon. Goodbye.